everyone, to the Speed Traveler Formula One Quick Dive. I'm Chris Everton, that's Charlie Frank, and we're going to be discussing the Hungaroring, which just happened this past weekend, and left me with some mixed emotions, Charlie.
Oh my God, that was a crazy race last weekend, and for the reasons you might not think. Very controversial ending. We hinted on this in our Instagram post, and yeah, I mean, it made no sense to me that Lando Norris was leading the race by 6 seconds and then all of a sudden slowed down to let Piastri by. I mean, what gives? Crazy, right?
It really is crazy. I mean, I know they pitted Lando Norris early to cover Lewis Hamilton, and in a sense, he ended up covering Oscar Piastri, who took the lead going into turn one at the beginning of the race. And that pit stop, to cover Lewis Hamilton ended up covering Piastri, and Lando ended up in the lead.
Yeah, I don't think it's what they had exactly planned, but it was just odd that Lando, as you mentioned earlier in the week, Lando's the guy that's leading or the closest to Max in the championship. And now they kind of like mucked it all up so that Piastri feels like he didn't exactly earn the win, and Lando feels a little bit robbed. And, Chris, tell us a little bit about the clip that we found with some behind-the-scene interviews.
Well, to set the stage, it was interesting. Like on the radio, they're really forcing Lando Norris to back off after I feel he got the lead legitimately. It's not like they had any team tactics that switched the drivers and they needed to switch them back. So Lando Norris ended up in the lead. And, the engineers and everyone was coming on the radio saying, okay, we got to switch positions. Piastri earned the front. We got to switch. Lando Norris, 6 seconds ahead, has to slow down and give up that position to give Oscar Piastri a very earned. I mean, eventually Oscar Piastri was going to get his Formula One win, but now he gets it under these mildly controversial circumstances. He didn't exactly earn the win, and we've got some great commentary. We've got some great interview footage from the drivers after the race.
Yeah, and let's hear that right now.
You lost.
Only the race.
I am king! I am the king! No, I'm not! I didn't beat him! He let me win! I can't win this way! I can only win one way! My way! He let me win! No! I can't win your way! You cheated!
All right. Well, that pretty much summed that up, Chris. What do you think?
I really couldn't agree more. He may have won the race, but he didn't really win the race. So, I mean, honestly, I feel I agree with Oscar's sentiment there at the end.
Well, you know what? Before we move on, Chris, I just had a quick question for you. In my mind, the question at McLaren was whoever led the race going into turn one was going to win the race, or did they make a game time decision in the middle of the race that Lando undercut and got into the pits first before Oscar, and then they tried to make it right? Which do you think that is before we move on?
Either it's hard to determine because listening to the race radio, it's kind of hard to tell, what the plan was. I mean, they kept saying things like in our pre-race briefing, these are the rules we're going to adhere to as a team. And we don't know exactly what that was. But, I mean, honestly, I feel like Lando ended up at the front of the race legitimately without doing any hargy-bargy, without any antics whatsoever. It was a legitimate undercut that just happened to work for passing both Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri. And going in later in the race, even making that call late in the race, I struggle with that because, sure, if they go 1-2 from the constructor's standpoint, it doesn't matter which driver is first and which driver is second. When it comes to the drivers' championship, that second place for Lando Norris is a 7-point delta, and quite frankly, they are now going to have to rely on if as an example, Lando Norris won every race moving forward, even if he won every race moving forward, if Max Verstappen ends up second place in every race, Max Verstappen still wins the championship. as a driver. So I really don't understand the logic there. I don't have a call one way or the other.
Yeah, well, that's it. We'll have to wait and see to the next race. But speaking of the nearest competitor, Max Verstappen, Verstappen had a star-crossed day. He started out trying to take the lead on the outside, got pushed wide, and then during the race, man, he made a lot of mistakes, and he was mad as a hornet behind the wheel, wasn't he?
Oh, he really was. And he complained about everything. He blamed absolutely everybody else other than himself. And I find that kind of interesting because Chris Horner at one point comes on the radio and says, we're not going to discuss that now. That's childish. Quite the stomping.
Yeah, Lando has a real shot at the championship. They've done so well in the last 6 races, that I think Lando's got a real shot. But we'll see how that goes. Any other drivers stood out to you? I guess we haven't mentioned Lewis yet. Lewis did a fine job coming in third place, didn't he?
Oh, a fantastic job. I mean, it's clear that the Red Bulls are struggling with balance and grip and some other things that have allowed McLaren has clearly catapulted to the front of the pack in this moment. Mercedes is also creeping forward. Ferrari is kind of hovering in the vicinity. Somehow they're clinging to the wrinkles in the carpet. But it's unbelievable the absolute catastrophe that is the Aston Martin year so far. And it seems like on the radio, a lot of drivers have been very, very unhappy with this race as a whole, this whole weekend. I think everyone's already exhausted. And it started early in the weekend. Perez stuffing the car in qualifying in Q1 was awful. I mean, what an awful start for them. But he turned it around and got the drive of the day, as far as I'm concerned, in the race, coming from near the back of the pack to scoring points. I believe he ended up in 7th place for the race. So a phenomenal drive by Perez. But everyone else, wow, it's pretty cranky out there.
Yeah, it really is. And, we'll go back and we'll cover that. Like you said, Ferrari did well, Perez did well. And now we've got the legendary Spa circuit coming up. Should be fireworks there. The Speed Traveler Quick F1 Deep Dive will be back. Any closing thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to Oscar Piastri making good on his post-race interview and winning that race back. At Spa.
All right, that's it. That's the Speed Traveler F1 Quick Dive. You can find us on Instagram at The Speed Traveler, of course on our YouTube channel at The Speed Traveler. And we look forward to your questions and your comments. Thanks. Bye.